The topic is HIV, AIDS, an update from StreetWorks. And of course, we have with us the Executive Director of StreetWorks, Mr. RCrowder. Mr. Crowder, over the last few minutes that we have here, let's give you an opportunity to talk about some of the research and some of the activities that are currently underway dealing with this as an issue.
Well, Dr. Haney, I think the most promising thing that's going on now is the HIV vaccine trials. I think the only way we're going to eradicate this disease is through a vaccine. We know long as man has been on the face of this earth, there's never been a cure for a virus. And the only way we eradicate disease is, for instance, smallpox. We eradicate it with vaccines. Now, I said to that end, there's vaccine trials going on all across the country. The problem with the vaccine trials that's going on is this. You got to have human subjects to participate in the vaccine trials, okay? Now, people of color will not get involved in the research. And they have good reason. They have mistrust for the healthcare system. You know why that is. You look at what happened in previous years, the Tuskegee study, that kind of thing. But that was then. This is now. There's procedures in place now where things like that can never, ever happen again. For instance, they got institutional review boards that review that stuff before it goes out. They have CABs, and that's CAB, C-A-B, Community Advisory Boards, who looks at it where the community people can get involved. There's all kind of procedures and policies put in place where that can never, ever happen again. And another thing about a vaccine, traditionally, when they're trying to come up with a vaccine, it's usually part of whatever the disease in the vaccine. Well, that's not true with HIV. There's no parts of HIV in the vaccine trials, so a person cannot get HIV by participating in the vaccine trials.
And I think that that's something that has to be emphasized, because one of the reluctance, I think, on the part of many people might be that if you become involved in these trials and you're given some kind of medication, that medication might bring about this whole issue.
Well, that's not true. There's no HIV in the vaccine trials. The other thing you have to understand is that they only take HIV negative people in the HIV vaccine trials. And these trials are, scientists right now think they've had over 1,200 volunteers. The problem with it is, for instance, if only women participate in the vaccine trials, if they come up with a vaccine, then it will only work on women. So they need people of all ethnic backgrounds, they need people of all sex, gender, race, everything. So if they do come up with a preventative vaccine, then it will work in all groups of people. And we as a community of color just will not participate in the trials. And I think that's because of history. But now, again, I must emphasize, that was then. This is now.
No, you're also saying, I think, that it was also said about another disease, diabetes, I think, that unless African Americans can participate in these trials, that if they do come up with a vaccine and there's no African American participation, there's no certainty that this particular vaccine will have an impact upon that group. And so it's, well, now, how do you, considering all of the difficulties and the history of it and the Tuskegee report and et cetera, how do you convince individuals of color to become involved in these trials?
Again, community education. We put on an event not long ago called HIV Vaccine Awareness Day, in which we tried to educate our community of what's going on with vaccine trials, how they can get involved. you know, where they can get involved. All about vaccine trials.
Everything that was,
Everything.
that would,
Everything. And these trials are being conducted. I think there's 20 vaccine trial units across the country. And Nashville is fortunate to have one involved. And we're StreetWorks is part of a big community education project, as I said, in conjunction with the National Institutes of Health, National NIAID. You know, I'm in this alphabet soup. I'm sorry I can't. It's a National Infectious or something. I can't get it together right now. But anyway, they can go to our website. We'll have a link to how to get
all
that.
these organizations.
Yes, absolutely. Or they can go to Vanderbilt's website, HIV. And I get those to you.
Yeah,
Make sure that we get that information
But
out.
the fact is that unless African Americans participate in these trials, and if the only way that you are suggesting that this disease might be dealt with has to be some kind of vaccine,
Absolutely.
then if they do not participate in the trials, then they will not be able to receive the benefits of the vaccine.
Absolutely.
And they represent a larger proportion of the population in terms of proportion of the population than any other group.
Absolutely.
Well, now, what do you see as a solution? Now, the Tuskegee trials and all of these things have made it difficult to encourage folks to become involved. And at the same time, in spite of everything that you're doing, people are still saying that it's possible to contract this disease through these trials. So, I mean, that's an uphill battle, it seems to me.
Well, again, partnering with community-based organizations such as StreetWorks, the National Institutes of Health. This is something that didn't occur back when Tuskegee was going on. It's our job to educate our community. Again, in this shows like this, getting the word out, letting people know there's no possible way of getting HIV from participating in the research. Again, if only white middle-class people participate in the trials, if they come up with a vaccine, it will only benefit that group of people. We have got to take a proactive lead in this. Again, we got to pull our head out to saying it only mean our butt is up in the air. We got to get involved. Otherwise, we ain't gonna have to worry about Tuskegee or nothing else. We just gonna eradicate our race ourselves. You know.
So, Mr. Crowder, you see it as being that bad in terms of unless something can be done.
Yes,
in other
sir.
words, this disease, as we've said time and time again, is not going to simply go away. Is that what we said? It's not going to.
Well, Dr. Haney, early on in the epidemic, we saw people who looked sick, who looked like death, and all of that. We're not seeing that anymore with the advances in the medicines and everything. People are living longer, they're looking healthier. And the fact of the matter is, you cannot look at anyone and tell if they're HIV infected. So people still are being misguided by what they seen early on. They're gonna be real skinny, they're gonna look sick, they're gonna be able to look at them and tell something wrong with them, and that's not happening.
That's not the nature of that disease.
No, absolutely not. So there's only one way you can tell if you're HIV infected. That is to get tested. So we have to get tested. We have to go into these HIV AIDS organizations, get the information, get educated. Again, I have to say it over and over and over again, knowledge is power. Call StreetWorks, 321-3344. We on Joe Johnson. We in Tony Sudicum. We out there. People want access to information for fear. Somebody say, oh, if you go in that office, they got AIDS. That's not it. Get over it.
And so it's a real problem.
It's a real problem.
It's a real uphill battle that StreetWorks and all of these other Nashville Cares and all these organizations are working with, because are facing essentially the same issues.
And First Response Center, let's mention Reverend Ed Sanders Metropolitan Interdenominational Church. They're doing a great job. Women, the organization Women.
White Morley?
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, all of these organizations are working at trying to deal with the same problem. Of course, Mr. Crowder, let me thank you for bringing that excellent information by, and let us encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.